We've all run across the giant rub in the middle of an open forest that has a couple tree stands surrounding it, or the scrape line of the tree stand over it that's far away from any place a deer would move in daylight. Most hunters see sign and react to sign, but hunters seem to have a hard time interpreting sign. So in this video, let's just take a brief look at interpreting sign. I'm up here in the Northwoods in Clark County, Wisconsin, in the state forest land, and see this trail back here, this heavy trail, beat through the woods. This guy here found it, set up a tree stand on it to climb up the tree. It's a climber, but he padlocked it here and he put it in about a month before season, before bow season for deer opens. I see he even marked the tree here, which brings up a good point. If you set up on deer, I mean, you don't want to just set up on a game trail, because really, this ain't a game trail. You need some sort of sign. You need some tracks, you need some rubs, you need some sort of sign that deer are using the trail and the bucks you're after. This guy's in for a poor opening day, even though he preset this a month early. And the reason for that is this trail is here because I put that trail there 4 years ago and been using it every year to bait bears. I carry my buckets of bear bait through here once a week, and he thinks it's a deer trail. Point is, find the sign, find the tracks, find the rubs, the scrapes, the terrain features that cause it to be a good spot to hunt deer, not just a beat down trail. You got to really look close. Sometimes it's just little nicks on trees. Sometimes it's most of the time for me, the subtle sign is seeing the leaves ruffled a lot where something's been feeding. And then you start looking and you see all the little nibblings on the brush, all the little plants eaten. And if you look close, you can see where they're bit off. And if you see that in large numbers, there's obviously a group of deer feeding there. Look at the browsing in here. This is amazing. These stinging nettles are eaten almost to the ground. There's a lot of deer hiding in this little spot that nobody even knows about. No human sign anywhere. And look at these giant tracks. And look at that jungle. That is thick stuff. That might be where they're all holding up. And food sources change rapidly in big woods. And it's not what people think. You know, people be like, well, what do they eat? They eating acorns. They're eating all kinds of stuff. We couldn't sit here and name the plants. I was looking through my footage today while I was editing. And I'm watching all these deer and what they're eating. Heck, I don't know what it is, but they're going to it. And they're specifically going to a spot to eat that plant.
Right.
And there's a lot of that going on. I mean, you see them eating moss. All this jewelweed is munched on. Look at over there. It is just munched to the ground. There's one island that I had a lot of big bucks going to. And I didn't know why, and then after the season I went in there and really looked it over, and they were eating tree mushrooms. Those mushrooms that come out of the trees.
Sure.
And those were on all the dead trees in there, and they were just pounding them. Followed these deer tracks in here, and what I'm finding is a lot of these mushrooms here on these trees. See where they chewed off everything on the sides? They're actually eating these. There ain't much to eat out here, and it obviously isn't the benefit of the hunter to know what they're seeking out. You know, But that's not something that you know you're going to find every place you go. So what you have to do is be able to walk through the woods and be able to see that, recognize it. Most guys walk through a woods and they go from point A to point B. And they carry their bow and they walk like zombies. I'm not doing that. I'm going through that woods and I'm observing what's going around. As a matter of fact, I seldom take the beaten trail. Because I always want to see what's going on over here. I got like a plan. I'm going to go over there and hunt over there, but I want to see what's going on over here first. And I scout my way to my hunting spot. Matter of fact, I don't end up at the spot that I'm planning on going to most of the time.
Yeah.
I end up seeing something like, oh, I'm hunting here. Something's going on here. I'm hunting here. And, you know, everybody says like I should be telling my wife where I hunt and stuff. It's not possible because I just wander around and hunt, you know?
Right.
In a lot of the areas where there's big timber, the deer densities are a lot lower than we experience across the rest of the country. And because of that, there's not as much competition between the big bucks. When there's less competition, there's less rubbing. That can make it hard to locate big bucks if you don't have the shining rubs all over the forest. However, all bucks rub, and you should at least find some rubs in an area if you intend to hunt there, if you're hunting for big bucks. When I look for rubs, what I'm looking for is high rubs and big rubs, but mostly the height off the ground. Obviously, if it's this big around, it's probably not a spike doing it. But anything lower than your knee is probably a 1.5 year old buck. The older bucks rub higher. You notice something you talk about rub height. Look at this spindly one here that's really high.
Yep.
And the one in the back, it's got the diameter everybody talks about, but look how low it is.
Yep.
I'd say this small one's the bigger buck.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've got markings up.
Yeah.
It's almost chest height right here.
And last year, this is right where I had all the big bucks staging. I could see them from my stand.
You can see it rubbed on this back side, and this branch is broken here, and this is all the way rubbed up into here.
Yep.
So he's probably taken and going a motion like this, or his antlers are wrapping through. Because you've got this all the way up high
Yeah.
here. That's a mature buck.
But you're not always going to find rubs in the areas that are the spots to hunt. And if you hunt where rubs are, you're not always hunting where the deer are in daylight. So finding a rub in a spot you want to hunt is not a bad thing. But hunting where a rub is because there's a rub there probably isn't going to get you anywhere. That's hunting like everybody else, and it's going to get you the same results.
Usually, generally, the higher the rubs are, the older the buck. And when I start seeing rubs where the center of the heart of the rub is about 3 feet off of the ground, generally we're talking about an older buck.
This is the big one here. Look at this. Look how high that is. Look at all the trash around it. The buck had to be standing right here. That's pretty high, dude. Come over here and look at this. How did he get in here and rub this? Now, I can see that. It's got some old rubs on it, but it's not fresh. And there's marks here from getting back here. Yeah. Dude, if he's hitting this stuff, look at that. Look at how wide he's got to be. I'm saying that when he's rubbing this, he's hitting that. It's all enclosed. You see that?
I do.
There's no way he's hitting that from any other direction than coming in here and rubbing this. There's actually marks down here. There's marks here. So his rack, when he's rubbing that, is this wide.
At least.
That's a pretty good buck, dude.
Plus he's coming in from this angle too. No, he can't get there because
Right, he couldn't get in here. There's
With
no
that
way
one.
he can get in there except from right here while he's rubbing this. He's hitting both of them.
Oh.
And you can see he hit it last year too. Look at this. See that?
Oh yeah.
And here, last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's
I think this is a good buck. Let's follow this trail and see where it goes. If you have snow or you have mud, tracks can be one of the biggest indicators. Big tracks and a long footstep, a long gait. I can fit my whole hand in here. And here's the gate. The steps are this far apart. This is his left foot and his right front foot. That's a pretty good gait. Let's take a look at this one. And here he is here. Looks like we stepped in that one on accident. A lot of people think scrapes are just sign that tells you a deer's there and it's a good place to put a trail camera kind of thing. But most of the activity's at night. Now that can be true if you don't know what you're looking at. Most scrapes are like that. But if you can read a scrape and know why it's there, it's a whole different story. Scrapes are, like rubs, are for communication. They have a reason. And I have shot some of my very biggest bucks over scrapes in daylight. One of them at noon, when he came out of a bedding area to refreshen a scrape after the rain stopped. I found this buck way back in a remote area, glassing a river bottom from up in a forest on a ridge. And I watched him get out of a bedding area in an oxbow on a river and go in and work a scrape. And I watched this in August and in July. And on opening day of bow season, I went in at noon, right after it got done raining, and killed this buck when he came to freshen the scrapes as the rain stopped. I watched this buck during the summer with another buck, about 140 class buck, come out of two different bedding areas that are next to each other and work the same scrape. They wouldn't work at the same time, but they'd come out about the same time, one after the other, and they'd work that scrape and then they'd move on their way. Got the wind right, went in and got in a little willow tree, because it was the only tree around. And the first buck in was that 140-inch 10-pointer. And I passed it, let it go through, hoping to get the real big one. And just as that 10-pointer got out of sight, I saw some ripples in the water and turned, and this monster was coming, and he walked right in, and I shot him at the scrape. When bucks put scrapes in the staging area, within 100 yards of their bedding area, and it's where bucks stage from multiple bedding areas. When big bucks are bedding in the same area, and they all stage in one spot, and they put a scrape there. Those bucks will get up every evening and go work that scrape, and that's been one of my best spots to kill giant bucks, when they're competing against each other like that. See how the ground is worn away? Even though we're in March, this is the primary scrape that's being used. You see some of the big old rubs around these huge trees. Right here, that one's got some fresh marks on it there. You look at this branch here. I'm 6'2". These primary scrapes get used all year round when they're right next to bedding areas. I guess it's not too overly uncommon to see does at scrapes at peak rut. But when you start hunting the scrapes that are right next to bedding areas, the bedding scrapes, you're going to start seeing does and fawns and other deer use those scrapes too, because in that position, it's more about communication. But just scrape lines going through the woods, no bedding around, just tells me a buck's there. I'll look at the size of the track and the scrape, maybe I'll drop a camera there. But unless there's a reason for a buck to be there in daylight, I'm not hunting it. You should make sure you get good at aging sign. You should be able to look at nibbled branches and see if that's been done recently by how dry it is. You should be able to look at scuffs in the dirt and see if they're fresh. You should be able to look at rubs and see if they've been done in the last few days, in the last week or so, or a month earlier.
Looked down and I saw a wedgie. You guys know what a wedgie is? A wedgie is when a big buck, because his toes splay. When they splay, mud packs in between the toes because buck hooves spread out so far. And then when they walk, a wedgie falls out. Here's what a wedgie looks like. Here's a wedgie. It fell out from between a buck's toes.
The main thing about all of this sign, whether it's rubs, scrapes, tracks, browse, is that it is near big buck cover that a big buck would feel safe bedding in. If it's not, don't waste your time sitting there. When you find buck bedding in big woods, it's going to be on those transitions and stuff, but what you're going to find is that buck is going to put his back up against a tree, against an obstacle. He's going to have that wind coming from the obstacle. He's going to be looking downwind and watching for you and smelling for you from behind. He's going to cover all his bases, so there's no way a wolf could run up on him. There's no way a human could sneak up on him because he's going to be smelling from behind, watching in front. Sometimes they get in thick cover and they lose that sight advantage, but they put that position where you have to come through some heavy cover and make a lot of noise. Does, on the other hand, when they bed, they usually bed near where bucks bed, but they bed up higher. They bed further away from that cover, and they bed in a circle. And they all look a different direction and watch out for danger. And they don't relate that as much to the wind. It could be any wind when one deer's looking that way, and one deer's looking that way, and one deer's looking that way.
Here's a bed here, there's a bed there, there's a bed there, bed there, bed there, bed there, a bed there, and a bed there. Notice how they're in a circle. All of them look in a different direction. That way they can monitor danger coming from any direction and they work as a team together. Kind of different from buck bedding. Where he's bedded looking that way. See where she's bedded looking that way. And there's
The
another one
knowledge
there
part
too.
is powerful.
Yeah, the hard part with it is, you know, I'll hear about some giant buck, or I'll run across one, like the bear bait buck.
Right.
I go out there, I find this buck, and he's too big to just let sit there, but I haven't pre-scouted that.
Right.
So then I got to fall back on my old scouting. I have to fall back on what I've learned from all those places I've walked. And I have to be able to look at a map, make a judgment, and go in and take my best shot at it.
I kind of had an idea of where I wanted to go, but I wanted to scout too and see if I came into anything. Where I wanted to go didn't have much sign, but I got into a lot of buck sign and started following them back, and it led me to back here, and I think this is where the buck's living. We got a good scrape right over there, and we got known buck bedding out here, over there, and over there, and even over there. The scrape and a bunch of rubs are right there, and then they feed off going back. And here's just the old rubs from years gone by where they used to come through here. But I've had some action right over here, and I might be better off if I was sitting more over there. But the bucks usually get this far, and I'm not real sure they ain't coming from that way. I'm 90% sure they come from this way, but I want to cut this off too. So, and they really could be coming from that way. So from over there, I ain't got no shot. Everything kind of meets right here. And there's actually still a few acorns on the ground. So it's already like 5 o'clock because I've been following the sign around and following these transitions for a while. So I need to get in the tree. But hopefully whatever's making those scrapes shows up.
Well, I hope this video helps you open your mind to thinking a little more about sign and about why it's laid and where it's laid and how to react to it. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe if you haven't already done so, and hit the like button. Thank you. Bye.
What are you doing, huh?